Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Janna.
And I'm Hemkor Saroya, and on the show today, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is set to appear in a US court this week, and this is expected to put an end to the years-long legal saga as he's agreed to plead guilty in a court, accepting that he did reveal military secrets, and in exchange he will be allowed to go free. That's what we're expecting, and we will be tracking that on the show.
Also on the show, right here on World DNA, in the latest escalation of tensions between US and Russia, the Kremlin has squarely blamed the US for the deadly attack on Crimea, which was carried out using US-supplied ATACMS missiles. At least 4 people were killed and 151 were injured in that attack. And now Moscow has formally warned the US that a retaliation would follow. What kind of retaliation can we expect? We are going to be discussing this with our guest joining us right here on World DNA. Let's get you started with the headlines.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange will plead guilty to US criminal charges as part of a deal that allows him to go free, ending his years-long legal drama. WikiLeaks says Julian Assange is free and has left Britain.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken calls on Israel during a meeting with its defense minister to avoid further escalation in Lebanon as they discuss efforts to reach a deal to free hostages in Gaza.
Ukraine's President Zelensky appoints Brigadier General Andrei Natov as commander of joint forces, replacing Lieutenant General Yuri Sodol. Announcement follows after reports that Sodol performed badly in Ukraine's war against Russia.
Pentagon says Ukraine makes its own targeting decisions and conducts its own military operation. This after Kremlin blamed US for an attack on Crimea with US-supplied ATACMS missiles that killed at least 4 people and injured 151.
At least 8 people have been killed in a large office building fire near Moscow. 2 people were killed after they jumped from a window, while 6 died when the interior of the office collapsed in the blaze.
North Korea is sending more balloons likely to be carrying trash into South Korea, claims Seoul's military, continuing a tit-for-tat balloon war between the two Koreas.
Supply disruptions continue to hurt aircraft production in 2024. Airbus lowers delivery target to around 770 airplanes from 800. Deadline for narrow-body airplanes is also pushed to 2027 from 2026.
Captain Rohit Sharma leads from the front with a 41-ball 92 as India reached the semi-finals of the T20 World Cup with a 24-run victory over Australia. India will face defending champions England in the last 4 on Thursday.
Our top story on World DNA this morning, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is set to appear in a US court this week.
Well, Assange has agreed to plead guilty to US criminal charges as part of a deal that will then allow him to go free. Assange, who was in custody in Britain, will plead guilty to a single count of conspiracy to obtain and disseminate national defense information. WikiLeaks reported that Julian Assange is free and has left the UK.
He is scheduled to appear on Wednesday morning local time in the US territory. Assange is expected to be sentenced to 62 months in prison, with credit for 5 years he has served in Britain prison. This means he could return to his native Australia, ending the years-long legal drama.
Australia says it is aware of WikiLeaks founder's legal proceedings in the United States, adding that his case had dragged on for too long. US legal documents showed that Assange, an Australian citizen, has made a deal to secure his freedom by pleading guilty.
And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York on this. Listen to this.
Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, has agreed to plead guilty to a single felony count of obtaining and disclosing national security material. He will appear in court at 9 a.m. local time on Wednesday in northern Mariana Islands and is expected to be returned to Australia after the proceedings end. The deal ends a long standoff with the United States, which had sought to extradite him to face 18 counts related to WikiLeaks' release of classified documents. Assange has already served about 5 years in a British prison and will not face additional prison time. The case has raised concern about press freedom on the one hand and the public's right to know on the other. Assange's supporters argue that his actions were indeed in public interest, while U.S. officials claim that they put U.S. national security at risk. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
After Russia blamed the US for a missile attack on Crimea, Pentagon claimed that Ukraine makes its own targeting decisions and conducts its own military operations.
Well, according to Russia's defense ministry, Ukraine used Army tactical missile systems or ATACMS rockets supplied and programmed by the United States. The ministry claimed 4 of the rockets were intercepted over the city of Sevastopol, but fragments from the 5th rocket led to casualties among civilians on the ground. The strike left at least 4 people dead and more than 150 injured.
Russia's foreign ministry had summoned US Ambassador Lynn Tracy over the attack. In the meeting, Moscow reiterated that Washington bears equal responsibility with Kiev for the attack and formally warned of a retaliation.
Thereafter, in a statement, U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said the country lamented any civilian loss of life.
We provide weapons to Ukraine so it can defend its sovereign territory against armed aggression. That includes in Crimea, which of course is part of Ukraine. And Russia could stop this war today and end the suffering caused by the war Russia launched today if it would stop its occupation of sovereign Ukrainian territory and stop launching attacks on civilians.
Meanwhile, Russia also accused the United Nations of double standards.
We do not deliberately target any civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. Only that infrastructure that relates to the military-industrial complex of Ukraine. We do not bomb cities. We do not bomb civilians. So that's it. We are not doing what Israel is doing in Gaza.
A day after the attack on Crimea, a Russian double-tap missile attacked Ukrainian town. At least 5 people were killed and 41 others were injured in what Kiev said was one of the largest attacks on civilians.
As tensions on the battlefield continue to escalate, Ukrainian President Zelensky replaced Kyiv's commander of joint forces. He's appointed Brigadier General Andrei Anatov as Commander-in-Chief, replacing Lieutenant General Yuri Sodol. This after a series of reports suggested that Sodol had performed badly in Ukraine's 2-year war with Russia. All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by Zakim, Senior Advisor at Center for Strategic and International Studies from Washington, D.C. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Sir, of course, tensions have been on the boil between Russia and the West, but directly blaming the United States right now. Some may say that's an escalation. What's your assessment of this?
Well, I suppose, relatively speaking, it's an escalation in the sense that previously we've put far more limitations on Ukraine. The argument, of course, is we shouldn't have put those limitations on in the first place. And we've slowly, essentially, been raising those limitations, first by allowing firing into Crimea, then allowing firing around Kharkiv, and now essentially saying that the Ukrainians can hit Russia in self-defense. Now, in all of this, some of the Europeans, the French, the British, have been ahead of us anyway. So escalation is probably the wrong word.
Mr. Zakim, now when France mentioned that they are not opposed, or rather when Macron mentioned that he's not opposed to the idea of foreign troops entering Ukraine, and when David Cameron, I think on the same day, mentioned that it's up to Ukraine if they want to target inside Russia, and now US is saying that Ukraine decides its own targets inside Russia or outside. Now, of course, the earlier two times we heard that, Russia took that as an escalation. And this time, Russia has said it in as many words that a retaliation will definitely follow. What kind of retaliation can we expect now?
Well, I think that Mr. Putin, to some extent, is bluffing. Remember, earlier on, the retaliation they seemed to hint at was some kind of nuclear retaliation. That didn't happen. Every time we finally sent weapons that the Ukrainians had been begging for months, the Russians made threats, and those threats didn't happen. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if the Russians retaliate against NATO, they don't have the troops available to really deal with that right now. Most of their troops are committed to the south. Do the Russians really want to go nuclear? Do they know how we'll respond? That's a very high risk for them as well. So I suspect that, once again, Mr. Putin is making threats. It's not clear how he could carry them out.
Calling it a threat or a bluff or a rhetoric at the moment, but nobody really wants to get themselves involved in a nuclear war. Thank you so much for joining in. That was Zakim joining us from Washington, D.C. Pleasure having you on World DNA, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's shift our focus now with the European Union formally initiating Ukraine's accession talks. Soldiers and lawmakers alike reflect on the country's decade-long journey to officially become part of the bloc.
Well, one such story is that of Yegor Sobolev, a veteran of Ukraine's 2014 uprising, who is now soldier fighting against Russian forces that launched an invasion on Ukraine in February 2022. For Sobolev, the beginning of formal accession negotiations come full circle after a decade of the nation trying to embrace and cement European values. Being a member of the European Union is a critical step in establishing an identity for Ukraine, and that still grapples with remnants of its Soviet past.
I think that from the point of view of courage, will and the ability to stand up for one's values, we are already inside the European Union and we can share this knowledge. From the point of view of our ability to manage our government, to choose honest officials, to create a judicial system, we are at the back of the room and we still have a lot to learn.
But why has this been a 10-year-long struggle for Ukraine? Well, the revolution of 2014 is known as the Euromaidan revolutions, which was a series of protests and clashes that began in November 2013. The mass demonstrations were triggered in response to Ukraine's then-president Viktor Yanukovych's decision to suspend its association agreement with the European Union. Ever since, the country has been trying to move closer to Europe by adopting pro-Western reforms and rehashing its foreign policy, until the war with Russia began over 2 years ago.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who has been calling for a clear sign from the EU 27 since January 2022. Just day after Russia's full-scale invasion, Kiev filed its request to join the European Union as a way for Ukraine to validate its European vision and value system that Moscow vehemently opposes.
We asked the European Union to admit Ukraine immediately, according to the new special procedure. We are grateful to the partners who stand with us, but our goal is to be with all Europeans and, most importantly, to be equal. I'm sure that's fair. I'm sure we deserve it. I'm sure it is possible.
While talks beginning today mark a significant development, Ukraine still faces a lengthy path to accession. Moving on then, with the growing escalation between Israel and Lebanon, the IDF has claimed fresh attacks against Hezbollah.
Well, Israeli fighter jets struck military targets inside South Lebanon, and this comes as US continues to urge de-escalation between the two.
The Israeli forces have also claimed to have fired artillery towards Al-Shaib. As per reports, the IDF dropped phosphorus bombs on towns near forests, causing fires to break out. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant on Monday. At the meeting, Blinken urged Gallant to further avoid escalation with Lebanon.
U.S. has warned that an Israeli offensive into Lebanon will trigger an Iranian response, triggering a broader war in the region.
Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant arrived at the U.S. State Department for talks with top American diplomat Antony Blinken on Monday. The visit comes amid U.S. calls for a ceasefire in Gaza and for the development of a realistic post-war plan, according to State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller.
We have been quite consistent that for there to be an enduring defeat of Hamas, there needs to be a plan for what replaces them. And what replaces them needs to be Palestinian-led governance. It needs to be realistic security plans. It needs to be realistic reconstruction plans. And that's what we continue to work towards with our Arab partners in the region, and as we continue to push the government of Israel to properly consider.
Washington has warned Israel that the absence of such a plan could trigger lawlessness and chaos, as well as a comeback by Hamas in the enclave. After the meeting, Gallant didn't address this point with reporters, but did say the alliance with the United States is extremely important to the future of Israel. He also met with advisors to President Joe Biden, as well as CIA Director Bill Burns Monday, in discussions he called critical as Israel deals with Gaza and escalating hostilities on Israel's border with Lebanon, where exchanges of fire with Hezbollah have stoked fears of wider conflict. He's set to meet with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Tuesday.
Meanwhile, on Monday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed that he is committed to the proposed post-war Gaza plan and the hostage deal. As per the Israeli military chief Herzi Halevi, the remaining Hamas forces in southern Gaza Strip have been quote-unquote nearly dismantled.
We are committed to the Israeli proposal that President Biden welcomed. Our position has not changed. The second thing, which does not contradict the first, we will not end the war until we eliminate Hamas and until we return the residents of the youth and the north safely to their homes.
The Israeli army has continued its massive military attack on the Gaza Strip for the 9th consecutive month.
Reports suggest the Israeli military has been using destructive forces and resorting to mass murder against Palestinians, even in areas it is designated as safe zones.
Now, there have been several reports of human rights abuse by the Israeli military forces on Palestinians. 3 days ago, a wounded Palestinian man was tied to the bonnet of a military vehicle and paraded during a raid in the West Bank city of Jenin. According to the victim's family, there was an arrest raid during which the man was injured. His family claims when it pleaded for an ambulance, the army took the man, tied him to the car and drove off.
According to UN report, children living in conflict situations have experienced violence at unbearable levels. Children are reportedly recruited and used, including at the front lines. Human rights bodies claim that Israeli forces seek to destroy Gaza's food basket and its local food production system. Israel has reportedly ruined 75% of the farmlands. Israel is accused of preventing the entry of food supplies and humanitarian aid in order to use starvation as a weapon of war. Remember, the United Nations has added that the Israeli forces It's added it to the list of shame, warning parties committing grave violations against children. Now, the death toll in the lithium battery factory fire in South Korea has risen to 22 workers, most of whom are Chinese nationals, as per the fire officials.
The facility caught fire after a series of explosions ripped through the factory run by primary battery manufacturer Arisel in Hwaseong, an industrial cluster southwest of the capital Seoul.
22 people have been confirmed dead after a large explosion set a lithium battery factory on fire in South Korea on Monday, local fire officials said. The blaze started after a series of battery cells exploded inside a warehouse with some 35,000 units, a local fire official said. What had triggered the explosion remains unclear. The factory is run by battery manufacturer Arisel in Hwaseong, a major industrial cluster about 90 minutes southwest of the capital Seoul. Parts of the factory's upper level had collapsed and large chunks of the building had been blown out into the street. Earlier, smoke was captured billowing across the city skyline. A Reuters witness saw firefighters moving up to 6 bodies out of the factory. 18 Chinese workers and 1 Laotian were among the dead, local fire official Kim Jin-young told reporters, citing information from company officials. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol visited the scene and was given a briefing by officials. Interior Minister Lee Sang-min called on local authorities to prevent any hazardous chemicals from contaminating the area. Kim Tae-ho, a fire and disaster prevention professor at Daejeon University, said battery materials like nickel are easily flammable, so the fire probably spread too quickly for workers to escape. Arisel makes lithium primary batteries for sensors and radio communication devices. Calls to its offices went unanswered. The company is not listed on South Korea's stock market, but is majority owned by S-Connect, according to regulatory filings. S-Connect is registered on the junior KOSDAQ index and its shares closed down 22.5%. South Korea is a major industrial economy and has made efforts to improve its safety record after several past accidents, many of which have been blamed on negligence.
And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. On the other side, US prosecutors are recommending criminal charges against the aviation giant, alleging the aerospace giant violated a 2021 settlement agreement.
Also on the other side, commercial shipping lanes are facing an unprecedented crisis as Houthi attacks continue to impact global trade. We'll get to that story on the other side. Stay tuned.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at WION.com.
Rwanda's President Paul Kagame, leader of the Rwandan Patriotic Front, defends his country's democratic credentials as campaigning opens for the July 15th presidential election, with the incumbent widely expected to extend his 24-year iron-fisted rule over the Great Lakes nation. Top comedian turned politician Michael Yusi sworn in as Malawi's vice president. The 55-year-old replaces Saulos Chilima, who died in a plane crash earlier this month. And the rainbow flag flies high in Namibia as court declares laws banning gay sex unconstitutional. Watch World of Africa at these times on WION. World is One.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
Economic turmoil and global unrest have cast a shadow over President Joe Biden's approval ratings.
The rockets are continuing to be fired by Hamas in Gaza, although at a slower rate than previously.
So, right now, we are with the volunteers from the Aleppo municipality. They are still trying to go to the rescue for the people they can find out.
India has emerged as a major diplomatic force at the world stage.
The rising cost of living in Nigeria continues to impact citizens from all walks of life.
The citizens of Gujarat witnessed a mega roadshow here in the city of Ahmedabad.
China is South Africa's largest trading partner for 134 years straight.
A domestic aircraft carrying 72 people on board crashed in Pokhara city in central Nepal.
165 injuries have been moved, 61 people are confirmed dead, and rescue operations continue around me.
After receiving an entire season's rainfall in a span of 48 hours, Chennai city has literally been brought to its knees.
For WION, World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Lots lined up for you on this side of the show. Let's get started.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange will plead guilty to US criminal charges as part of a deal that allows him to go free, ending his years-long legal drama. WikiLeaks says Julian Assange is free and has left Britain.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken calls on Israel during a meeting with its defense minister to avoid further escalation in Lebanon as they discuss efforts to reach a deal to free hostages in Gaza.
Ukraine's President Zelensky appoints Brigadier General Andrei Natov as Commander of the Joint Forces, replacing Lieutenant General Yuri Sodol. Announcement follows after reports that Sodol performed badly in Ukraine's war against Russia.
Pentagon says Ukraine makes its own targeting decisions and conducts its own military operations. This after Kremlin blamed the United States for an attack on Crimea, with the US supplied ATACMS missiles that killed at least 4 people and injured 151.
At least 8 people have been killed in a large office building fire near Moscow. 2 people were killed after they jumped from a window, while 6 died when the interior of the office collapsed in the blaze.
North Korea is sending more balloons likely to be carrying trash into the south, claims Seoul's military, continuing a tit-for-tat balloon war between the two.
Supply disruptions continue to hurt aircraft production in 2024. Airbus lowers delivery target to around 770 airplanes from 800. Deadline for narrow-body airplanes is also pushed to 2027 from 2026.
Captain Rohit Sharma leads from the front with a 41-ball 92 as India reached the semi-finals of the T20 World Cup with a 24-run victory over Australia. India will face defending champions England in the last 4 on Thursday. The Indian government has refuted West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee's claim that the state wasn't consulted before India-Bangladesh announced talks for the renewal of the 1996 Ganga Water Treaty.
Well, in a letter to the Prime Minister's office, Mamata Banerjee had termed the decision to begin talks for the renewal of the treaty as unilateral. She urged the central government to not exclude West Bengal while having such discussions.
Now, several reports have quoted government sources saying that West Bengal was consulted on the review of the Ganga Water Treaty with Bangladesh.
Last week, an announcement was made that India and Bangladesh will begin technical level talks for the renewal of the treaty. This after Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's meeting with his Bangladesh counterpart Sheikh Hasina. Under the Farakka agreement, India and Bangladesh agreed to share the water of River Ganga at Farakka, a dam on the Bhagirathi River around 10 kilometers from the Bangladesh border.
Department of Space.
The Himalayan glaciers have been dealing with the impact of the heat wave in northern India.
There are around 18,000 glaciers in Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, and all of them are melting rapidly as heat wave continues to grip the region. Idris Sloan gets us this report.
The Kolahoi Glacier in the Kashmir Valley, the biggest glacier in the region, has lost around 23% of its mass in the last few decades due to the rise in temperatures and below normal precipitation in the winters. The stated reasons: the scorching heat wave over North India and increase in even normal temperatures over the years. Rising deforestation and air pollution add to the problem, and experts warn that an environmental disaster lurks.
It is a major concern. The melting of glaciers, if you look at Indian Himalayan glaciers, it's already under the adverse effect of climate change. We are seeing most of the Himalayan glaciers melting. They were because of the impact of the increase in the temperatures and the outcome of the climate change. If the current trend of climate change continues, 70% of glaciers will vanish by the end of this century.
Horticulture and agriculture are the major contributors to the GDP of Jammu and Kashmir. And most of the valley's agricultural and horticultural land depends on the melting of snow on higher reaches, which fills up the streams and rivers. Data has revealed that the Kashmir Valley has lost over 30,000 hectares of agricultural land in 10 years.
It may not impact in one particular year or impact with a blow. Like this year there is water enough and the next year there won't be any water left. No, it won't happen like that. It will happen slowly until we won't notice it. Or if we talk about the past 5 years, the winter precipitation has been below normal. So we can estimate from it our glaciers are reducing already. We aren't seeing the normal precipitation in winter season.
The erratic melting of these glaciers in the higher reaches will also impact the power generation in these areas. Experts believe the water scarcity in the region could have an adverse impact on hydroelectric power projects. Power projects in Jammu and Kashmir are also a big source of electricity for the whole of North India.
The rise in the temperatures across the globe leading to the global warming is having an adverse impact on the glaciers of Jammu and Kashmir. And with the pace these glaciers are melting, experts believe that by the end of this century, 70% of these glaciers would completely vanish. With video journalist Feroz Idris Sloan for WION World is One.
All right, let's now shift our focus to the Red Sea, where troubling developments continue.
Houthis have launched a series of attacks on commercial ships, and this is concerning for both frequency and effectiveness of these ships. Recently, one of the commodities carriers, Trans World Navigator, was targeted for the 4th time. And this comes despite efforts by US-led coalition to quell the violence. And this incident was marked by a suspected drone attack early Sunday, resulting in moderate damage to the vessel and minor injuries to the carrier crew.
Now, earlier this month, the Tutor, a ship carrying coal, tragically sank as well, and one of the crew members died following what's believed to be the first successful Houthi strike from a seaborne drone. In a separate recent incident, according to reports provided by the US military, crew members on the cargo carrier Verbena abandoned ship in the Gulf of Aden following 2 Houthi missile attacks that caused fires on board. The mariners were rescued by another bulk carrier.
Since late last year, the Houthis have targeted merchant ships for what they say is a response to the Israel-Hamas war. Attacks have led to a 70% decrease in vessel traffic through the Red Sea, as many ships have now opted for longer and safer routes which go around Africa.
Red Sea, which is crucial for global trade routes for oil, liquefied natural gas and other commodities, is now facing severe disruptions. Calls for increased naval presence have intensified, with officials from the European Union's naval force in the region advocating to double their size to effectively counter the Houthi threat. Meanwhile, the US military aircraft carrier strike group is preparing to leave the area, raising concerns about the continuity of protection for the commercial shipping lanes in the Red Sea. And this crisis not only poses significant challenges for maritime security, but also underscores broader geopolitical tensions and their impact on international trade and energy markets.
There seems to be no respite for Boeing. US prosecutors are recommending criminal charges against the aviation giant, alleging the aerospace giant violated a 2021 settlement agreement.
Now, this agreement had shielded Boeing from prosecution for fraud related to two deadly 737 MAX crashes. That was in 2018 and 2019. The Justice Department claims Boeing failed to uphold its end of the bargain, which included overhauling safety compliance practices and submitting regular reports. Details on the specific violations remain undisclosed, but the potential consequences are significant.
Boeing could face criminal charges that extend beyond the original fraud allegations. If Boeing is convicted of criminal fraud, then it would lose all government and military contracts. This can further dent the company's image and revenues under the radar amid ongoing safety challenges. The Justice Department has until July 7th to decide whether to pursue criminal charges against Boeing. The company maintains it complied with the 2021 settlement terms. However, discussions are underway to potentially resolve the issue without prosecution.
Meanwhile, for over 11 days now, astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore remain stranded aboard the International Space Station due to a helium leak on Boeing's Starliner spacecraft. Initially scheduled to return on the 13th of June, their departure has been indefinitely postponed. The delay stems from a series of helium leaks discovered post-launch. Now, a new report reveals that NASA and Boeing had prior knowledge of a small pre-launch leak, which was reportedly deemed non-threatening. This unforeseen setback has raised significant safety concerns regarding the spacecraft's ability to safely undertake its return journey.
Crew has arrived on level 12.
The ongoing delays have prompted NASA to intensify testing and evaluation processes, aiming to address the helium leaks affecting the Starliner's thruster performance. Despite assertions that the astronauts are not stranded and could return if necessary, the repeated postponements highlight the complexities and risks involved in ensuring the spacecraft's readiness.
Boeing, which has already faced scrutiny over Starliner's development costs and safety issues, now confronts additional criticism as these technical challenges persist. All right, let's now take a look at all the developments from the world of technology now. As per report, a Chinese state-sponsored hacking group called Red Juliet has intensified cyber attacks on Taiwanese organizations in the government, education, technology and diplomacy sectors. These attacks were noted to have occurred from November 2023 to April 2024 around Taiwan's presidential elections. Red Juliet accessed servers via vulnerabilities in a popular VPN software and targeted over 70 Taiwanese organizations. Reportedly, their goal is likely to gather information to support China's policy towards Taiwan. China, however, has denied the allegations and has called them disinformation. Cybersecurity analysts believe that such attacks will probably continue and have advised organizations to patch known vulnerabilities.
A team of US researchers have developed an AI model that can help electrical grids prevent power outages by automatically rerouting electricity in milliseconds. This automated system is an early example of self-healing grid technology. This tech uses AI to detect and repair problems such as outages and storm-damaged power lines without human intervention. Researchers from the University of Texas at Dallas have demonstrated that their solution can identify alternative routes to transfer electricity to users before an outage occurs. Unlike human-controlled processes that can take minutes to hours, the system can reroute electrical flow in microseconds. However, scientists say more research is needed before this system can be implemented.
A report shows that spending on AI and generative AI in India has been projected to reach $6 billion by 2027. The report by International Data Corporation says AI and Gen AI adoption in India has significantly increased. This includes software services and hardware for AI-centric systems. Experts note that this AI moment is not a one-time event and that its impact on India is widespread, with data being the most valuable asset as the outcome. Global AI spending has been projected to exceed $512 billion by 2027.
2007 champions India have qualified for the semi-finals of the T20 World Cup.
Captain Rohit Sharma's 41 ball 92 and an impressive outing by the bowlers helped them beat Australia by 24 runs. India will now face holders England in the semi-finals on Thursday, while Australia's fate hangs in the balance.
Now, put into bat first in windy conditions in St. Lucia, India lost Virat Kohli for a 5-ball duck in the second over. Captain Rohit Sharma then took it upon himself to lift his team out of the precarious position. Mitchell Starc bore the brunt of his onslaught, conceding 29 runs.
India were 43 for 1 in 4.1 overs when rain stopped play for 10 minutes. When the match resumed, Sharma hit the fastest 50 of the tournament of just 19 balls. It looked like he would become the second Indian to score a century at the T20 World Cup, but fell 8 runs short as Starc dismissed him in the 12th over. Suryakumar Yadav's 31 of 16 balls helped India reach 162 for 4 in 15 overs. Then Hardik Pandya's 35-run partnership with Shivam Dube and 11-run stand with Ravindra Jadeja took India past the 200-run mark.
Pandya remained unbeaten on 27 as India posted 205 for 5. Now, Australia, of course, came in later. Australia lost David Warner in the first over. Travis Head, who was player of the match against India in the ODI World Cup final, then stabilised the innings with captain Mitchell Marsh. The pair added 81 runs in 48 balls before Marsh fell for 37 in the 9th over. The odds still favoured Australia, who needed 119 runs from 66 balls with Head and Glenn Maxwell at the crease. The momentum swung towards India after the 13th over as the Aussies lost 2 wickets in the space of 7 balls. But with Head still in the middle, Australia still had a chance. But those hopes were quelled by Jasprit Bumrah in the 17th over when he removed Head for 76. Arshdeep Singh's 2 wickets in the 18th over all but confirmed India's victory. Needing 39 of just last 2 overs, Australia could only manage 14 as their innings ended on 181 for 7.
And now turns left-hander and goes the distance. This is very inventive. It's when he bat. Oh, knocks him over.
We knew he's a legend, and the big knock was around the corner all the time. So we were not surprised by the way he played today, and it came off really well. And even in the coming games, we just hope he does the same for us.
We knew it was coming, so yeah, everyone did what they needed to do, and I think we played a very good cricket team today. I felt like we were pretty good for 90% of it. So seeing how the guys come out, the energy this morning, yeah, I don't think you can look too much into it. It's what it is. We knew it was coming, so you deal with it.
And India have announced a 15-player squad for the 5-match T20I series against Zimbabwe in July.
Riyan Parag, Abhishek Sharma and Nitish Reddy have been rewarded for their exploits in the IPL with maiden call-ups to the Indian team. Senior Indian players have been given a break after the T20 World Cup.
Yashasvi Jaiswal and Sanju Samson are the only 2 players from India's T20 World Cup squad who will be travelling to Zimbabwe. Shubman Gill will lead the team in the series, which begins on the 9th of July. Dhruv Jurel, who has received his first call-up to the T20I squad after making his test debut earlier this year. Rinku Singh has also been included in the squad.
This IPL season's emerging player of the year, Nitish Reddy, has also made the cut. He is joined by his Sunrisers Hyderabad teammate Abhishek Sharma, Washington Sundar and Riyan Parag in the all-rounders department. India has opted to take just one specialist spinner, Ravi Bishnoi. Pacers Avesh Khan, Khalil Ahmed, Mukesh Kumar and Tushar Deshpande round off the squad. "15 years ago, on this day, the world lost a music icon. Michael Jackson died on the 25th of June, 2009.
As fans from around the world mark the death anniversary of their beloved singer, we take a look at Jackson's controversial music journey. Take a look.
Ever since I was born, Daddy has been the best father you could ever imagine.
You
must be living under the rock if you had no clue about the man who was famous for his moonwalk. Michael Jackson, who rose to fame when he was only 14 years old, filled the music world with his infectious songs and videos. Born on August 29, 1958 in Gary, Indiana, he was the seventh of 9 children. 5 Jackson boys, Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon and Michael, first performed together at a talent show when Michael was 6. They walked off with first prize and went on to become a best-selling band, the Jackson 5. But Michael left the band and launched his first solo album in 1972. In 1982, he released another album which became an instant hit. Titled Thriller, the album sold more than 27 million copies worldwide. The next year, Jackson unveiled his signature moonwalk dance move while performing Billie Jean during an NBC special. In 1994, Jackson married Elvis Presley's only child, Lisa Marie. But the marriage ended in divorce in 1996. Jackson married Debbie Rowe the same year and had 2 children before splitting in 1999. The couple never lived together. Jackson has 3 children named Prince Michael I, Paris Michael and Prince Michael II. The youngest was dangled by his father over the railing of a hotel balcony, which drew widespread criticism. Like this incident, Jackson's musical genius was overshadowed many a times by his bizarre lifestyle and sex scandals. One of the most renowned artists around the world, Jackson was acquitted at a 2005 trial in California on charges of molesting a 13-year-old boy at his Neverland Ranch in California. In 1994, he settled a sexual abuse lawsuit concerning another 13-year-old boy. Known as the King of Pop for hits that included Thriller and Billie Jean, Jackson's dramatic one-gloved stage presence and innovative dance moves were imitated by legions of fans around the world.
The girl was dangerous.
His lifetime record sales tally is believed to be around 750 million, which added to the 13 Grammy Awards he received and made him one of the most successful entertainers of all time. But Jackson's belief that I am Peter Pan in my heart, his preference for the company of children, his friendship with a chimp, his high-pitched voice, and numerous plastic surgeries also earned him critics and the nickname Wacko Jacko. Jackson, who had lived as a virtual recluse since his acquittal in 2005 on charges of child molestation, had been scheduled to launch a comeback tour in London in 2009. But he died of cardiac arrest that same year in his rented mansion in Los Angeles. He was 50 years old. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
And with that, we call it a wrap on this edition of World DNA.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Come right back after the break.
Economic turmoil and global unrest have cast a shadow over President Joe